book of Ruth is about redemption. We see the character of God in this book in two ways. Number one, of course, in his providing a redeemer and redemption for the most unlikely and undeserving of people. But also we see him as the God of providence, working in the midst of really tough, hard circumstances, and yet moving all these hard things, all the suffering, all the difficulties that Ruth and her family went through, moving it all towards a really great and glorious end. And showing us Romans 8:28 in very graphic, vivid detail that he works all things together for good. We see the character of Christ in this book in the way it describes redemption to us. Sometimes when we talk about redemption, as the New Testament talks about redemption, we bring in 21st century ideas. But actually, if we want to understand Christ's redemption, we need to go back to Ruth, because that's where God defines redemption. And he says the Redeemer is to be a blood relative. He's got to have the means to make the purchase. He's got to have the willingness, and he's got to be prepared to marry the person he redeems. And so when we think of Christ, we think that's exactly what he does. He's a blood relative, bone of our bone, flesh of our flesh. He's got the means to pay the ransom himself. He is willing to pay it, and he's willing to marry those he redeems as well. So we see the gospel in this book so beautifully in God's grace to the undeserving, to an outsider, to an alien like Ruth, and also in the way that he is pointing towards the great and glorious Redeemer and redemption that's to come.